Today's helper, Ruga! Yay, Rugs! Hey guys, it's Kaz here, aka Cats and Camera, and today I'm doing my September wrap up. So in September I read 8 things, and very surprisingly for me, half of them were physical and half of them were electronic, which doesn't normally happen. So first of all, this is not the actual book, but I read Ruin Rising. Obviously this is the first book, but I borrowed it from the library. And it's weird, I've got this thing with this series. I really like the characters, I love Nikolai, he's just amazing. I'm so glad I read this series just for him. But I like all the other characters as well. I like the magic system, the Grishas, they all have different powers to do with different aspects, either making stuff, fighting and healing, or the elements. So I enjoyed that, I liked the whole premise of the plot. But there's just something about this series, and I don't know what it is, that for some reason I just don't feel like I connected to it. A lot of people absolutely love this, and I really enjoyed them, but all of the books took me quite a while to get through. And I don't know whether it was the writing style, or I actually don't know, but for some reason I didn't like them as much as I thought I would, even though I enjoy most of the things in it. I did give all of the books sort of like 3.75-ish. So I did enjoy them, but for some reason they just didn't grab me and I didn't get as invested in the story as I thought I would. Next up I read the Young Avengers. This is the complete first volume. I really enjoyed this one, I gave it 4 stars. This is basically a group of teenagers that all have powers and they want to help out the Avengers because the Avengers have ceased to be. So they want to fight crime and they're a little bit lame at it. There's a lot of infighting and teenage things. There's a sort of artwork in here. But yeah, all of the characters were great. They all had their own personalities and their own aspects. This is a comic that a lot of people praise because they actually include LGBT characters in here, which doesn't happen in comics, especially superhero comics. But we've got 2 of the boys in here are in a relationship and it's just no big deal. So yeah, if you want to read something a bit fun and a bit teen but still have all of the superhero elements and have all of the characters like Iron Man and Captain America in here as well, then definitely check this one out. Next up I read The World of Normal Boys, and this one I really enjoyed it, but it was kind of a little bit. So basically the main character in here is 13 and there's a lot of descriptions of sexual acts and stuff like that, and I was definitely picturing him at like 15, 16 at least, because it felt a little bit weird that it was 13 and all this stuff was happening. So there was a little bit of uncomfortableness there, but it's definitely a really good book. It tells the story of Robin in the early 70s, and this big thing has happened in his family and he feels like his life's coming apart, and he's also dealing with his sexuality and dealing with the boy next door, but also this other guy at school that's a little bit of a bad boy and a little bit of a loner. It sounds quite cliche when I say it like that, but it's actually really good, and it's different. There's quite a lot of harrowing things that happen in here, so definitely give it a miss if you can't handle bad things happening to kids basically. But yeah, it was a really good book. I mean, the fact that I started reading this and I was like, oh, I'll read another chapter and then I'll go to sleep, and I literally stayed up until like 8:30 in the morning reading this. I'm glad I wasn't at work the next day. But yeah, it must have been good if I just couldn't stop until 8:30 in the morning. Next up I read Heartstopper, which is an online comic. This is an ongoing thing, so technically I haven't actually finished it, but I read all the way up to where it is now, which is like a year's worth of stuff, so I feel like it counts that I read it this month. And this is just, it's a really cute comic. Basically I saw on Goodreads someone post about this, and then because I didn't even know that this world of free manga and comics online existed, and then I fell down the rabbit hole and I found this website called Tapas, or it used to be something else, which is what this is on, and then I found another one called Webtoons, and I've just become obsessed. Like I haven't already got enough to read. But yeah, Heartstopper it's just a really cute comic about these two guys at school and their friendship developing, and then one of them has feeling for the other one and he doesn't know if it's reciprocated. And it's just really nice because it's really slow build. There's no just insta love and then getting it on. It's a really slow build, it's becoming friends, and it's also set in England, so it makes me feel a little bit closer to it because I understand it more, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's just super cute, and I'll definitely leave the link below to this one. And I've also started reading one called Crush, I started reading another one called I Hate You. I've got a bunch more tabbed, so yeah, I'll leave all the links below to all of this sort of stuff, so you can fall down the rabbit hole too and put off all your TBR and read online comics for free instead. Oh, also, I gave this 5 stars, it's just really cute. Next up, I read this anthology called Love, Murder and Mayhem, Cosmic Tales of the Heart Gone Deadly Wrong. This I got for review, and unfortunately I didn't really like it. I gave it 3 stars, but for the first half of it I felt like 2 stars was going to be the rating, because the first half of the short stories, all of them were kind of bland and boring, and there's just not enough mayhem for me, not enough murder, not enough craziness. You know that I like my stuff dark, and it wasn't dark enough. And yeah, there were just a lot of forgettable short stories on here, unfortunately. I actually started this before I read like 3 of the other books. In fact, yeah, I started this and then I had to put it down and read Young Avengers because I wanted something that I actually would enjoy. I just had to get away from this for a little while because it just felt like I was slogging through it and it made me feel really slumpy. But luckily the second half, the stories were more enjoyable. There are a couple that stood out, which I find always happens in anthologies, which is probably why I'm not really a fan of them. I haven't read that many, but the fact that there's always going to be ones that are better and always going to be ones that are worse, it kind of puts me off a little bit. There wasn't enough superheroes for me. I felt like there was going to be from the cover. And yeah, I'll leave my Goodreads review below because I left like a sentence about each one of them if it's something that interests you. Next up, I read another book for review called Double Bluff. I don't know what this cover is about because the main character is a guy, so yeah, I'm confused with this. But it was really good, I gave it 4 stars. In this we follow our main character Nick, who right at the beginning of the story comes out to his best mate Jordan, and she's just like, well duh, obviously. But he wants it to not be obvious at school, so he lets her set him up with this girl Aria, who she's friends with. And it's just a really cute story. There's a new guy, Adam, who he's falling for a bit, but there's this whole thing of him obviously not wanting people to know that he's gay. But everything that I've just said could have been really cliche and really over the top and dramatic and unnecessary love triangles and stuff, but it's so nice because this doesn't have any of that in. It's just a really nice, heartwarming, coming of age, and it's just really cute. Where there could have been really over the top dramatic stuff, it didn't happen. People actually felt like human beings instead of plot devices of shouting at somebody and not talking. I really don't like that in books when 2 characters could be on the same page if they just said a sentence to each other, but then they stay quiet and then big build up of dramaticness happens. Obviously it works sometimes, but sometimes it's just like, stop making everything a big deal. And this book didn't. It was really nice to read something that didn't just make everything a big deal. It was just really heartwarming and really cute, and I definitely recommend it. This is another one that's set in England, and I actually wrote this on my review, I'll link that down below as well, that it wasn't something that was really obvious, but it was really nice because in a part of the book a couple of the characters are going to a party and they have to go on a push bike, and that was just so nice to read because most books that are popular and people read are like American and Canadian, so everybody's got a car at like 14 or 15 or however old, and it's just so nice to see kids actually needing to go on push bikes because they don't own a car, because we don't have cars that young in England. So yeah, that's just a random point that I really enjoyed. But yeah, I'll leave my link for my review below. It's spoiler free, but it just gives you a little bit more info about what I liked, and there's a couple of quotes in there as well because there was quite a lot of funny bits in here as well. Next up, I read Lumberjanes, again on my Kindle. I have Amazon Prime, and because of that they have like a bunch of books that you can borrow from their Kindle store rather than having to get Kindle Unlimited, which is more money. And this was one of them that I picked up that I've really been wanting to read, and I could read it for free, so I was like, yes, give me that. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. It's very wacky and out there, but kind of easy for kids as well. It's PG. I really like the art. I saw some people saying that they didn't like the art. I liked all of the characters. And yeah, it was something that I knew that I wanted to read, but I didn't know how crazy and random it was, so that was a nice surprise. And the way it's written, each volume is like an episode of a TV show like Scooby-Doo or something like that, where some crazy thing happens and then they have to overcome it. It's just nice, fun read. I don't know why I just said it's like Scooby-Doo, because I don't even like Scooby-Doo, but people that have read this will know what I mean. And last but not least, I read Cinnamon Toast and the End of the World. This one I also gave 4 stars to. There's a lot of 4 stars here, so even though I actually felt like I was going to read nothing in October, because like I said, I started that anthology, was the second thing I read, and it just dragged for so long, but I actually got quite a lot of things read and I enjoyed everything else. So yeah. So this one is another gay contemporary set a little bit back in the day. It's like 70s, 80s. And the way it's written, our main character Stephen will be talking about something now, and then he'll randomly tell an anecdote from back when he was a kid, but it works. It doesn't feel jumbled up. It feels like it works in the way that it's written. I don't even know if that makes sense how I'm saying it. This starts where he kind of realises that he's in love with his best friend Mark, but as it goes on he talks about stuff that happened in his past and how it's not really him just realising he's kind of fallen for him a long time ago, and there's a lot of things about his parents and their relationship and how he is at school, and it's just a really good book. You should definitely check it out if sort of LGBT contemporary books are something you enjoy. Set a couple of years back. It's really random. I didn't even realise this until I started reading this, that obviously I had this one and also The World of Normal Boys that's set like kind of back in that time, and then the month before I read The Year of Ice, which is also set in the 70s. That was an accident, but it seems like I'm having sort of a 70s 80s vibe recently. This is also one that if you don't like violence then don't read it. There's something that happens kind of towards the end of the book and it's quite graphic and it's quite violent, and it made me cry, but there's an uplifting end. But yeah, if you don't like reading about physical violence then give it a miss, but if that's something that you can power through then check it out. Also there's little bits and bobs of self-harm, so yeah, again, if that's something you can't deal with then stay away. So yeah, this represents the 8 things that I read in September. Apart from that one anthology that I read, I enjoyed all of it. It was a really good month. Even Ruining Rising, even though I say it wasn't as good as I thought it would be, I still enjoyed it. And like I said, Nikolai, even if the series was terrible, which it isn't, just Nikolai makes up for it. So yeah. So tell me what you read in September down below. Also don't forget to check out the description below, because I'll be leaving all the links for all those webcomics, and you can forget about your TBRs and start reading that instead, accidentally. If this is your first video by me and you enjoy it, then check out some of my others, and if you continue to enjoy them then please subscribe, that'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I will see you in a few days with another video. Bye.